Well, while we're switching over, I will introduce Dr. York Lunau, who joined the Novartis Foundation for Sustainable Development in 2006, reinforcing the organization's capacity concerning corporate responsibility issues. Born in Germany, Dr. Lunau's last position was leading the consulting activities of the Institute for Business Ethics at the University St. Gallen. His 2000 doctoral thesis was on business ethics consulting, and so I think he's very at home here at this conference and among us at Notre Dame. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for the kind introduction. I think it will help you directly as a good forecast how I will approach the topic. The topic was, because you don't see it on the slide, the UN Millennium Development Goals, the Global Compact, and the Common Good. Maybe I have to be a little more precise and tell you that Novartis was one of the major clients before I joined Novartis. So I'm with these people working on the Global Compact for several years now. So I'm very happy that I can share some of the experiences in that regard with you in the back, because I was told I come here to see 100 students being very interested in corporate responsibility. I see you in the back, but probably just waiting to become what you will be soon, the decision makers of those decisions we are talking about here. So you have the decision what to stress, and I just want to give you some hints, and it's up to you what you do with that. It's an honor to be in Notre Dame. It's my first time. To be honest, I found out, I think 3 days ago, it's not in Chicago. To take a cab would not really work, and so I had to take quickly a car from Hertz, and that's why I was 5 minutes late yesterday night, because I also found out it's 1 hour time difference, so sorry for that. To be honest, when I was invited, I didn't say yes directly because just because of the workload on my desk. But Novartis is one of the companies who became part of that new leadership or new lead, Global Compact Lead initiative. So Prime is one of the things we have to work on, and that's why I had to say yes. And in this case, it's an honor for me to share my experience with you, the students. And good midnight, I have to say, also to the elderly students in the front. So when I had decided, the question was how to prepare so that you gain as much as possible in a very short time. And the first reflex was to just draw on this report, which I didn't send to you. It's Achieving the UN Millennium Development Goals, the contribution of Novartis. But I think in such a short time it would be very superficial, so I had to decide, do I tell you just one story? No, let me try something different. You might know that the foundation, the Novartis Foundation for Sustainable Development I'm working for, is not only engaged in on-the-ground projects in development assistance with regards to health, but also working as a think tank in corporate responsibility, identifying trends for Novartis, for the pharmaceutical industry, and trying to help to address new challenges, whether you call them corporate responsibility, corporate social responsibility challenges, sustainability challenges, or corporate citizenship challenges, as we call it them at Novartis, doesn't matter in that regard. With this background of having worked with practitioners with very different functions and on practical solutions for very various challenges, I tried to remember my own times as a student and was looking for something I might have not seen, a key aspect I might not have seen at that time when I have this conference theme in front of me. And the simple question which then came up was, if you read the report, you will have a nice overview on the Millennium Development Goal contributions, and we cover all 8, sorry. Now, the simple question which comes to my mind here is it really just nothing special that companies are engaged in the MDGs? Is it a natural thing? Is it a minor change of business as usual? Is it just a marginal phenomenon? You can guess that I feel, or would have a slightly different opinion, or feel at least, that there might be a little more or much more than this. But I don't want to give you an answer. It's a suggestion to think about it, and I will try to do that by quickly running through some slides, not explaining anything, but raising an issue. I hope this will work. In this sense, mentioning the report on the MDG contributions was meant as a hint. You can download it and read it, and once you go there, you will find a lot of other information. You can find a special website on the corporate citizenship of Novartis, and you can find the website of the Novartis Foundation, and on the right corner, down on the right, you will see that there is a newsletter on the last symposium, which was on the MDGs. So a lot of things to read, and everything I say from now on is meant as a hint to do more investigation and research in that regard if you are interested. Back to the question whether business engagement for the MDGs only reflects a new label for occasional philanthropy as usual, or whether a new approach and rationale of dealing with societal problems is looming. The basic assumption is that it's definitely nothing bad to have a few additional and more efficiently organized projects to support development in disadvantaged societies. But the real progress would require some deeper changes in the way business is dealing with the big societal challenges, where no market signals tells them what exactly to do. The suggestion I want to propose you for further thinking and debate is the following. If the Global Compact's core idea of, I call it, bi-directionally working both on the 10 principles and on broader UN goals, gains real broad support, we might be amidst a remarkable transition, a transition towards a distinctively changed role of corporations in society. What exactly do I mean with bi-directional approach? If you take the booklet Father William has distributed, where do I have it? Here. It's the other one, exactly, thank you. If you take the booklet Father William has distributed before the conference, it has two visual blocks on the content page. It's working on the 10 principles on the one hand and working on broader UN goals on the other hand. While working on the 10 principles usually means to amend some seasoned business procedures here and some well-established structures there, working on broader UN goals usually means to sit down and for once take a completely point of departure, which is thinking about these 2.5 billion people living on less than $2 a day. The question is, if a company is working more comprehensively in that bi-directional mode, what does this do to the culture of the company? And what does it do to the ability of the employees to use their scope of decision-making innovatively? So I'm talking about the social dynamics within the company. Will there be a development of a specific corporation which maybe a long time might have been seen as something like a likable opportunist, from a sporadic partner to a regular and reliable partner in addressing big societal challenges which don't have immediate market solutions yet? By the way, we are talking about this already quite some time, namely under the label of stakeholder management. If we always state that companies operate in a challenging environment and that they have to deal with very many special interests and with very many societal themes, then we implicitly state too that partnership skills gain more and more importance anyway. In case of Novartis, this has led to the following definition of corporate citizenship. corporate citizenship is about creating value through responsible business while taking on societal challenges related to the core business strategy and core competencies. And the according key question, which should always be on top of people's minds, is what activities do we engage in and how do we conduct them? Let us first look in the direction where much more Global Compact signatories and participants, I would rather call them, are advanced, working for progress along the 10 principles of the Compact. Just by coincidence, I told you that, Mark, before, I had some slides available on activities on Principle 10, anti-corruption. So let me just not explain again, but skip through them to remind ourselves what types of activities, what instruments, what tools are involved, and we have to think of when we talk about amending current business procedures and structures. The activities which I want to quickly mention are rooted in the so-called compliance and integrity program, which is about establishing standards and also enforce them, but maybe most importantly, promote them. Connecting them to a mission. We have talked about a mission. And then cascading them down to management procedures, standard operating procedures. Now, you see, code of conduct. Every company has a code of conduct. It would be very awkward if something like that would not have written down on that abstract level. But you need guidelines, a very normal instrument, instrument or tool, but you have to sit down regularly and work on that. And this version, I think it's still that version with slightly amendments, which came up after Novartis had signed the Global Compact and has built various working groups to find out what does that mean, what do we have to do. And it goes down to tools. You need a very clear guidance on what people should do or should not do. You need instruments like IT-based tools. The NP4, the Novartis Pharma Promotional Practices Policy System, relies on a Lotus Notes tool. When you want to give a gadget to a doctor, you have to type that in first. 2 other people have to approve. Then you can give that pencil to that doctor. So you have to build up all these things, and this is, again, just to remind you what is involved if we talk about working along the 10 principles. Very importantly, you have to align your incentive systems. At Novartis, we have 2 dimensions, the objectives, which you write down in the beginning of the years, and you have the values and behaviors. And if you meet your goals but behave bad, and you are 3-1, and you don't get your bonus completely. So this is very important to have systems in place. We can talk about this another time, whether this works in a satisfying way, but it's important to have something in place. You have to have tools for speak-up culture promotion. You have to have all kinds of training systems. This is an example of e-training modules for corruption, but for anything, even for human rights, you have to, this is obligatory, you have to pass these tests for, in average, once a month. You have the so-called ambassador program. You have to give people material who suddenly are invited to Notre Dame, for example, don't know what to say, where to get the slides from. Here they are. Support them to express what they think corporate citizenship at Novartis is. And you have to think very much an issue about the supply chain. Everybody has to be involved in something like that, and this is just to remind you what I talk about if I say working in the direction of enforcing the 10 principles. But now, the other direction of that bidirectional approach, the end where we always start to think of those who are living on less than $2 a day. What happens in the company and what happens to the employees involved if regularly a rather social entrepreneurial point of view, I would call it, is taken. If you just think of the jobs and income generation, it's clear that a health-related company can influence non-health-related MDGs too. However, given the fact that most of the MDGs are health-related, the red ones are health-related, it makes sense to focus on these for a moment. If people think of a pharmaceutical company and the MDGs, they obviously must have this on top of their minds. Yes, there is an access to medicines problem. Those who deal with this issue sincerely are very aware of the fact that good health has a lot of influencing factors and that many stakeholders contribute or don't contribute to healthcare and prevention. Just pick two of the socioeconomic factors in that seasoned model of Dahlgren. Education. If patients are lacking disease knowledge, they don't seek help properly. Or healthcare services. If there is no clinic, no skilled health workers around, you can drop thousands of pills with a helicopter and nothing would change. So in order to improve the access problem, various interrelated factors need to be looked at, so the access to medicine challenge needs to be addressed by many stakeholders, as I said. That is why we have to talk so much about collective action. Back to the bi-directional approach. We can start with simple philanthropy. Charts like this are not only published in the annual reports for external stakeholders, but it's also in the intranet and in internal newsletters. And if colleagues, Novartis colleagues, read about facts like this, they don't send only feedbacks of how proud they are that they work for such a company, and don't underestimate the significance of something like that. But it also inspires them to pro-poor activities in their working environment. And while this effect is very hard to measure, and while we have to rely on anecdotal evidence here, this is an effect explicitly dealing with the MDGs, which we should maybe think about a moment if we have this moment later. No, I don't share too many anecdotes here, but maybe this one. The malaria unit, we have to be aware of the fact that it's a commercial unit. It's not a foundation or something. They are responsible for the sales of Coartem, a leading anti-malarial. However, the bulk of the products nowadays is provided to developing countries without profit. I think it's fair to say that because of the according commitment, the malaria unit had to deal so much with governmental and non-governmental partners that it was kind of a natural development, a natural consequence that Novartis joined in a project to develop a dispersible formulation for little children. We heard that the under 5 years suffer most. Instead of a bitter-tasting tablets which needed to be crushed before you give it or try to give it to babies, there's a sweet-tasting and easy-to-apply medicine available now, increasing the ratio of successful treatments notably. Another example in this context is the SMS for Life project. While Novartis provides Coartem at cost and has brought down the price of one treatment far below $1 by efficiency gains, still millions of people die just because the nearest clinic has no medicines for them. Driven by this horrible observation and inspired by some of the collaboration partners, the malaria group decided to start another collective action project called SMS for Life. The technology is simple. Each health center receives an SMS on Thursday, 2 o'clock, asking to enter a simple code which reflects the still available supplies of the different types of the antimalarial. It's 5 types. If the health worker reacts in time, he or she receives an incentive in form of an airtime credit on his personal mobile phone. This allows to create a table, you see it on the right side below, which the district coordinator can then use to quickly redistribute supplies from one health center to the next. making sure the treatment within the first 24 hours, that's crucial, is possible. Inspired by people who are working on MDGs. This could be a long-owned story. This is maybe the clearest example for social entrepreneurship-like activities within a company. Here, people in rural India said, this is a white spot. We don't have any product sold here. What can we do? They engaged in trainings. They built up a very light structure of people going to a village every 4 weeks, telling very simple disease information to people and giving them a card where people could remove a part of it if they thought they have these symptoms, and they collected the cards, bring it to the next doctor. So they started kind of a disease awareness training and tried to bring accordingly cheap products to that area. The idea was, it's a white spot, we never sold any products, so we can afterwards calculate the amount of products we bring there and compare it to the costs of the training, and it was a black zero. Good start, very good progress, very big growth, and this is the interesting point here is these people have to defend what they do inside the company against alternative investments. It binds some capital, and people are asking, why should we put our money here? And once you have these discussions in the company, then that's what I want to point you at happens. People start to think about their scope of decision making in something like we could call social entrepreneurship, but don't tell Novartis said it's a social entrepreneur. Last example, maybe this is one of the most simple but most telling examples. If the research entity of Novartis, NIBR, the Novartis Institute for Biomedical Research, sits down regularly and writes down documents what they have potentially in their cupboards to address some of the biggest burden in Africa and elsewhere, then this just raises and increases the opportunity, the chance that somebody finds a way how to include that in a business setting. We don't have to talk about only foundation-like approaches here. It's always a business setting. But if you create an environment where people think about this to a certain extent, something will happen. So, to conclude, the question was whether we are living in times of a transition where so-called private companies are developing from a sporadic partner towards an active participant in collaboration settings where it makes a difference. And my objective was to give you that suggestion to further think about it. Students are your task is to build models. This could be another model. And the challenge probably is how to get from the top left to the top right. Most of the companies, I guess, the engaged companies, are still there. We have to give something back to society. And this is not, I think, what we have in mind if we talk about the conference's theme. So, now, last slide doesn't want to come up. Now, at Novartis, we will continue to observe ourselves, to what extent we are one of the companies which are leading on that path towards a corporate role of being a reliable, not only sporadic partner, successful in regularly approaching the big societal challenges in a social entrepreneurship kind of spirit. I have to read that. It sounds not as inspiring as I want to have this sounded, but I hope that once companies engage more in finding their ways to create that social dynamic within their companies, collective action is not an exception and not a marginal phenomenon anymore, but the rule. So thank you very much for your attention.